In this tutorial, we'll be um, texturing this plane with a wood texture. So I've just set up a basic scene with light with 1000-watt power. The power of the light is dependent on the size of the scene, so don't worry about it. The default settings should be good, and the plane I've just scaled it up by 5 times, I believe, and the camera position is default. Now let's jump into shading. So you'll see that I have this complex node network. Um, so let's just start over from scratch. So I'll just delete this new material. Let's call this wood. Now the two textures we'll be using for this are Musgrave and the brick texture. So now the bricks will be used to create the plank like shape for the texture, and the Musgrave will help create those wood pattern, or the pattern that you would see on uh, woody surfaces. So let's begin by adding a brick texture. Um, Control T if you have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled. You can enable it by going to Preferences, Add-on, and just search for Node Wrangler, and it should be that. You can get rid of the mapping because sometimes it gives weird results. When I tried with the particular texture right here, connect it to the principal PSDF, and now you should have this. Now we want to play with the brick width and row height to define how long our planks would be and how wide the plank will be. Let's just go to top view, 7 on your keyboard, um, numpad 7. Reduce the scale by quite a bit. This just is dependent on your scene again. Don't have to be exact about this. Now brick width, we'll just make it a bit longer, about there I guess. And row height, 0.15 should be good. It looks a bit awkward right now. We'll just decrease the mortar size to 0.001, and then we have a basic plan. Now bias, it's right now 0, and that's why you can see that there's a random color uh, gradient, I would say. So we have whites here and then black. So the white color right here is what you see here, and when you increase the bias, it would make it uniform. So the color 2 would be applied uniform. So if I were to make the bias 1, you would see that everything goes black or the gray color right here. And if I were to change this to 0, it would go back to the random um, bias. And now -1 would give me entirely white. If you go for this, just not play with the bias at all, change the color and increase the value. Don't change the color, increase the value of the color to about there. That's mostly everything for the brick texture. You see that these weird cutoffs right here. Just play with the scale a bit and you should be good with it. I'm not gonna worry about it too much. This is how it looks right now. Let's just keep this aside for now. Next is the Musgrave texture. We'll deal with that in a second. Shift A, add in a Musgrave texture. Now Control Shift and left click, and that will automatically connect it to the material output. Once again, you need the Node Wrangler add-on enabled. Okay. Duplicate the Musgrave texture and just drag and put that. Now you have this intricate pattern. What this does is it maps the second Musgrave texture to the first one. So you have the first Musgrave texture's output, which will decide where the second Musgrave goes into. So now if I were to just show you what this output would look like, it would be just this. If you would take a closer look at it, you'll see that the same musgrave texture just gets applied into the black regions or the white regions. That's all that's happening. So you get that nice mix of uh, both textures. Now Control T, when you have this particular texture selected, and you should get the mapping node and the texture coordinate. Switch this to object, and now you want this scale to be very high on the Y. Now this would change if your brick texture was not on the X. Uh, so right now our planks are going in this way. It is, you can see right here, it's facing, or it is aligned with the X, or it is parallel to the X axis. So we don't have to worry about that part. We'll just stick to this. Now keeping in mind that this is going along the X, we want to scale the Musgrave along the Y so that it looks as though the Musgrave is flowing through the X, if that makes sense. Let's just get back to the Musgrave. The increase in detail will give you a much sharper fall off. So the transition between the black and white will be very sharp, depending on how much of detail you give it. I'll just put it at the default value. I'm not going to play with it. Increase the Y scale to 15. Now what you want to do is, you want this brick texture to be overlaid onto the Musgrave. So obviously we'll need something to combine that together. That's mix RGB. So we'll just put that there. Right now it's not making any difference because principal BSDF is not connected to the material output. Let's just do that. Alt, right click and drag. This is once again using node wrangler and add-on. It will automatically connect to a factor. Just put it onto the color. Control shift and left click on this, and that will show you what the principal BSDF has to show. It'll show you what the end output is. So playing with the factor will give you either entirely the bricks texture or entirely the Musgrave, but since it's on overlay, it will overlay the Musgrave over the brick texture when you give it a factor of 1, and this would overlay the brick entirely over the Musgrave. I'll just organize this node set a bit more, keep it here so that we can see everything. Okay, now just reverse this to 0.5, and now if we zoom in, we'll see that the line in between also has the brick texture. It's not that visible because the mortar is right now black. Then we don't want black mortar, we want it to be brown. So now you'll see that there's these bands or stripes going through the mortar. It's very detailed approach. I don't think that looking at this level of detail is necessary if this object is not going to be in the primary focus of your scene. So you can just skip this part if you're not going to focus on the floor itself. Now we need a math node. I'll tell you in a second why we need this. Just plug the color value of the brick texture onto that and change this to compare. Now let's just put it onto the viewer node, and now everything's black. Why is that? Because the epsilon is 0. So what this node does is it it says that you want values from 0 to 0.5. I'll just give this to I'll just change this to 1, and now since it's 0 it will not show me anything, but as I slowly bring up the slider it will show me values. And now you can see that there's black on the mortar region and there's white on the plank region. Now we'll just connect this to the factor, and when we put it on, when we switch back to the principal, now you'll see that the Motor doesn't have any of those stripes anymore. Uh, so what this node does is, when you plug this under the factor, the black values basically say that you don't want the Musgrave texture on that motor part of your brick texture, and the white values say that you want this Musgrave texture over it. And that's all that we're doing with this. Um, and then you could add a bump texture if you want, or sorry, you could add a bump node and then give it some detail, make it look 3D. I'm using Eevee, so it's just going to be 2D anyhow. It might as well do that for the extra detail. So I'm not going to plug in this overlaid one. I'll just plug the Musgrave onto the height and the normal onto the normal. Now it's going to look crazy. Just reduce the strength to 0.1. We don't want it to be very high. And then Shift A, add a color lamp. And now change the color. So just decrease the value quite a bit, and then choose a color around this region for a woody color. Usually the wood color is between the red and yellow range, and I think I'm going to go with this. For this part, or for this color, we'll just use the eyedropper and choose the same color, but the only difference is we'll decrease or increase its value. I think I'm going to decrease it, and there you have it. So now the roughness is a bit off, so we'll just play with the roughness. You could decrease it, it might make it look a bit unrealistic. I'm going to just increase it a bit, by quite a bit actually. The specular, um, about that, and that's it. So that's how you create wood texture 100% procedurally in Blender. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching and if you learn anything new, please do subscribe and leave a like and comment if you have any queries or wish to see any other kind of tutorial videos.